Hi friends, host Derek here, host of Talking with Famous People. And the question, provocative question today, as the title is, can Dr. Les Carter be saved? Dr. Les Carter is this guy who does this Surviving Narcissism channel, and as I indicated in a video yesterday, he's somebody who makes me feel angry. Watching him angers me. Naturally, after I made that video, which you know how I just seated the pants, I'm feeling angry, here comes a video. But I've been thinking about this guy and this stuff ever since. And I was kind of looking at his titles and stuff, and I kind of wanted to revisit the issue in the sense that I'm being a little reductive with him, like reducing him a little bit to less than he is, I guess, or kind of straw manning him a little bit. And yet, at the same time, I acknowledge this because I guess there's some sense in me that he can be saved, and that he needs to be saved. So let's explore this a little further. You can see here he's once again talking about narcissists and what the healthy way to be is and the unhealthy way to be is. So let's listen to a little bit of it and see how he pays lip service to accountability in a way that reveals his cognitive function problems significantly. Like, you know, that this is a cognitive function problem, basically. So here we go. Let's check it out.
Is designed to be. Now, sure enough, it's okay for us to give each other feedback and suggestions and talk about what does and does not work, and we can put that under the category of having good boundaries. But I'm talking about.
So you'll know what he says here. It's okay for us to give each other feedback and talk about what works and what doesn't work. But the thing is, and he says that's part of having good boundaries. Well, the thing is, actually, that's not part of having good boundaries at all. What you're talking about is stuff that attains impacts even if it's in a messy way, you know? It's like, look, you might not get to be right and you might not get to be right, but this will work to move us forward from the current point of conflict. Might be a way that he would position this. The problem, of course, is very few conflicts boil down to what works. Almost all of them boil down to who's right. If you're having a conflict over statuses, for example, in other words, should you apologize for having done meh, or in fact, am I being too sensitive? Is a question that might come up in a relationship. And there's an answer to it. So, in other words, it's always okay for you to feel hurt feelings, but only sometimes does that mean I should apologize. Now, under Dr. Les Carter's framework, that apology is given to me because it's what I need and it will work to move us forward. Unfortunately, under those framings, that doesn't count as an apology to me. And it will not accomplish that. So until Dr. Les Carter can acknowledge that there's an additional metric that needs to be applied, namely correctness, we're stuck. He would at least recognize here that his thing's not working, right? Because he can't seem to get me to accept this apology that's justified in this fashion. If I were one of his clients, right? Okay, let's say I'm a client and I'm having a relationship problem with my wife, Rachel. We're going to marriage counseling. And my point is, well, she did this wrong it hurt my feelings. I think you should apologize for it. And she's saying, I respect that your feelings are hurt, and I feel bad for you that your feelings are hurt, but I didn't do anything wrong, and certainly nothing I need to apologize for. And if I were to apologize, I'd be tacitly conceding that I had done something wrong, and I don't want to do that. And let's say Dr. Les convinces Rachel to just give me the apology because so we can move forward. That's not acceptable. I need Rachel to actually agree. I need us to come into actual agreement, right? Like that there be a new understanding as to why it had been previously a disagreement, such as, no, I didn't do anything wrong, so I didn't do apologize. And me going, I know hurt feelings don't inherently mean you did something wrong, but you did something wrong in this instance, and I articulate what it is. And she still goes, no, I don't think that's wrong. Well, then the only way this situation resolves is for one of our understandings to change such that we actually agree with the other person. Not pretend to agree, not make a concession behaviorally on matters of status that does not honestly reflect our position. So the thing that makes me so angry about him, apparently, as I've thought about it more, is that he doesn't acknowledge, and there's an inherent contradiction, that people have different needs for feeling satisfied that justice has been attained. His channel, in some sense, is all about justice. It says, when a narcissist realizes you refuse to be controlled. Obviously, people trying to control you is in fact bad. Okay? But understanding the difference between trying to control you and trying to be a good citizen, right? A good citizen acknowledges that when we're communicating in language, that I have to afford you just as much communicative capacity as I afford myself. In other words, if I expect you to take my words seriously, to hear them, understand them, respond to them on point, not ignore them, not avoid them, if I expect you to treat my words like that, then I have to treat your words like that too. But from Dr. Les Carter's point of view, when words are used to meaningfully attain purposeful growth and understanding, it's only because two parties have both come to see the foolhardiness of the black and white distinction being made. And it's never the case that it's because someone's learned something. Let's move forward.
How there's just some individuals who will say there's a mold that I have designed, and I want you to get inside my mold as I say it's supposed to be. By the way early on, I came up with a little term that I like to use. I call it imperative thinking or imperative communication, that describes how these kind of controlling people communicate with you. I want you to think about how many times you'll hear things like, you have to, you must, you should, you're supposed.
So, remember about imperative thinking, Dr. Les Carter, is that you're leaving out half of it, okay? You're leaving out entirely half of the equation. And it's the half of the equation that really matters, of course. If you want to convey information to the world via YouTube and not do more harm than good, then you need to stop projecting your own frame bias so violently. These statements are true. I'm not actually trying to control you. I'm very confident that I will have zero impact on you at all. Why? Because I'm saying words that in order for them to impact you, you need to be able to listen to them, understand them, and respond on point. It's the second and third ones you'd be unable to do. Probably. I mean, this is the thing. Can Dr. Les Carter be saved? Can we save this guy? Can he learn anything? Right now, he's saying that anybody who's got clear indications about, hey, you need to stop that. You need to act more like a decent human being, is being controlling. Except that's entirely dependent on whether the statements are true. So, if in fact you don't need to do this, that it doesn't matter, then I'm just being controlling. If I were to go up to Dr. Les Carter in the street after hearing him chat with his friend, I would be controlling. Because, after all, I have no good justification for outrage. He's just chatting with his friend. He's wrong, but whatever. He's not poisoning people's minds with this paradigm projection that undervalues, doesn't recognize the legitimacy of, and pathologizes people who think well. Good thinking. And I mean, that's what I'm doing here. This is what you call good thinking. And it necessarily involves parsing. Okay? Now, I agree with you, Dr. Les Carter, and I think it's important to say this to everybody. In general, in relationships, it is a very bad idea to say, you need to meow. Or, they need. People use this construction all the time. Okay, you really need to meow. The reason that's a bad construction is it's a lie. They don't need to. You must. Also, bad word to use in a relationship, unless it's true. So, for example, if your loved one is being arrested and at gunpoint with the cops handcuffing her, you can tell her, listen, I'm sorry, you must go to jail right now. You have no choice in the matter. I'll see what I can do to get you out. That would be appropriate. In other contexts, it's a lie. If I say, you must wash the clothes on Monday, Rachel, I am lying. No, that is not true. It's not the case that she must do that. You should. Okay, so look at this craziness. You'll hear things like, you have to. Sometimes you do have to do shit. I mean, technically, maybe you don't have to. In other words, kind of like must. But sometimes you do have to. If the cops have you at gunpoint, you have to. If, I might say to my partner, look, you have to come to this thing. This is really important. I need you there. That'd be fine. It's not true, but it's hyperbolic, right? However, look at this. You should gets mixed in there willy-nilly with you have to and you must, as though they're the same kind of thing. You should is incredibly different than you must and you have to. Now, you're supposed to is basically saying third parties think you should. But, of course, Dr. Les Carter, have you done any analysis on prescriptive words like should? So it's what we call a modal verb, and it takes two forms in English, one being a prescriptive and one being a normative. Note, the entirety of your channel is a testimony to should. All you're doing is preaching about how people should be, and how people should not be, and how they're supposed to be, and how they're supposed to not be, and except you use little code words. We're about healthy behavior here. In other words, I'm telling you what you should do and you're supposed to be. And you fail to distinguish between things that are lies, you must, you have to, and most of the time lies, and things that are either false or true, namely prescriptive or normative statements. So what I'm saying is, Normatively, you're engaged in wickedness by selling people a bucket full of hooey. And a harmful bucket full of hooey, because they come up to me and they go, well, according to my hooey, you're a narcissist. Where'd you get that hooey? Dr. Les Carter's handing it out at his channel. We're all eating it up. We're all lined up. He's just gobbling this shit down. Okay. So now let's look at this other thing. How narcissists use humiliation and how you can respond.
Has done something that leaves us feeling guilty, like, I wish I hadn't have done that, or that was a bad decision, or I wasn't thinking right then. And all of us can come up with some things, sometimes small, sometimes larger, and sometimes something in between. We've done something that requires a reaction of guilt or shame. And in its best sense, guilt can cause us to say, this is what was wrong. This is how I went in a direction that I regret. And then here's what I'm going to do to make restoration. And then once you've gone through that process, you get to move on. You get to act like a forgiven person. And we say, live and learn. You live and you learn.
Okay, so let's scroll back here a little bit and review what he says. Sometimes a sense of guilt can say, this is what was wrong. This is how I went in a direction that I regret. And then here's what I'm going to do. Here's what I'm going to do to make restoration. And then once you've gone through that process, you get to move on and act like a forgiven person. And you say, we live and learn. You live and learn. So what's missing from there? What's entirely missing? The person that's been wronged. Right? So it's like he says guilt can be useful. Guilt can be useful. Usually when I feel guilty for something, it's correct. My guilt is correct. So it's a feeling I can trust. If I'm feeling guilty, I should have done something differently. And there are occasions where this guy's paradigm is right. And my guilt will inform me when it is. So I have had some conflicts with Rachel's family in the past. Rachel's dad is the most righteous of them discursively, and he's an ENFP. Because he's the most righteous of them discursively, he actually engages me, has engaged me, and allowed me to say my things that I needed to say on Rachel's behalf. And allowed me to say things like, he gave me the opportunity, at least by being on the phone with me, to say things like, you don't ever get to judge me. You had 10 years to fix this problem and failed utterly. And Rachel and I together, fixed it completely. So you don't tell me anything, basically. I am mad at you for how you treated this woman. I am mad that she had to suffer for such a long time when there was such an easy solution. I am mad that you imposed your TE on her for so many years, and I'm going to hold you to account. The problem is, I have held Rachel's dad to account, but I can't get the other people to sit down and be held to account. Because here's something that's true about narcissists. They run in terror when they encounter Eric. Because they know I'm not going to let them play let's agree to disagree. They know I'm not going to let them fool me with niceness or with bullshit or with shaming or anything else. They know that they are my prey. I am not theirs. And so what happened with Rachel's brother, I'm not calling him necessarily a clinical narcissist. I don't know. I haven't any means of even diagnosing that. But I will tell you this, that when I tried to talk to him on the phone and hold him to account and get some answers and shit, or when I tried to talk to him on the phone, even because I needed to clear up some logistics matters that he was pushing a timetable for, he simply absolutely refused to speak to me at all. And the reason is, narcissists can smell Buffy the Narcissist Slayer. And that is I. I am Buffy the Narcissist Slayer. This guy is, I mean, the way I read this is, it's kind of like smarmy twist the knife stuff. You know, if you get somebody who's your target in front of you, you want to go like, yeah, take that, right? So you could accuse me of doing that a little bit with this guy, right? I've got my target in front of me, and I want to make sure that it's clear that I got him. So the title of this video here is How Narcissists Use Humiliation and How You Can Respond. First of all, nobody can humiliate you. It's not possible for others to humiliate you. It is possible for you to have engaged in behaviors that arm others with the capacity to shame you. If you find that humiliating, then that's just how it is, right? It's possible to commit a crime against somebody in a way that causes them to feel humiliated, but it's doing the humiliator a favor to call it something other than that. So if you think about like schoolyard bullying, in which threats of physical violence are used to humiliate, shame, and belittle the victim of bullying, well, that's actually a crime being committed. The humiliation is an emergent phenomenon of the fact that the environment has somehow allowed this to occur and failed to remedy it. That, in fact, the paradigm's wrong, such that people don't feel as though the bully is the outcast who's humiliating himself, but rather that the victim is being humiliated. It's affording too much agency and authority to the person taking action without evaluating the legitimacy of the action at all. So keeping in mind that people can't really humiliate you. You can feel humiliated, or they can commit a crime against you, or you can be shamed either justly or unjustly. If I'm shamed unjustly, I'm not going to be humiliated. I'm going to be angry. If I'm shamed justly, well, 99% of the time, I've beaten you to the punch already. In other words, I try to get ahead of anything people can possibly shame me about by shaming myself about it first, publicly, before anybody can say anything. So you could shame me about something that I'd already shamed myself about, and then I would say, you are correct, but we've already undergone the unpleasant emotional part of that in that video there. If you'd like to watch me squirm, go watch that video. I'm not squirming again. I'm done squirming. So that's it. And so, in other words, I might be ashamed of myself, and I will squirm publicly, and I will then get to move forward, live and learn, right? Because why? I made sure that I'm accountable to everyone on the statuses, not necessarily because I made some sort of concrete amends. For people who understand language as primarily communicative rather than expressive, it's critically important that there be agreement about the statuses, much more so than it is important that experiences go one way or the other. And so if you take this guy's approach, what's really happened here? You've wronged somebody, failed to be accountable, and forgiven yourself. That's not a good thing.
Well, narcissists grew up with an understanding that guilt and shame and demeaning and pecking order is all a really big deal. But instead of them saying, well, what I'm going to do is I'm going to learn from these kind of things, and I'm going to figure out how I can take my guilt and my shame and then go back to that core, that base of love and goodness. They don't know how to do that. They figured out, okay, if I do anything wrong, then I'm going to be guilted or I'm going to be shamed. So how do I overcome that? And then they have their little moment of, they think, clarity. It's like, I know. What I'll do is I'll find people who are lower than me. And so they go about the business of making other individuals feel lower so they can elevate themselves at your expense.
So this phenomenon does definitely happen where you've got, the people who seem to be persistently shitting on other people sort of as a matter of course. Like Jeff Shaw comes to mind. He's persistently trying to invalidate the authority to comment that other people have, or the authority to talk that I have, by basically negating in ways that are enigmatic, annoying to the person, and derailing their line of thought, negating it, saying it's not good without giving adequate justifications, just sort of gesturing at holistic shit. And of course, periodically I'll hear somebody go like, who's new, go like, who is this Jeff Shaw guy and what's going on with him? And I'm just like, I don't know, man. He's just doing his thing. The point is, in this instance, we look at this relationship with shaming, guilt, etc., right? It sounds to me like he's never really experienced, Dr. Les Carter has never really experienced a truly fair environment in which you can reliably assume that if you're being shamed, that you probably fucked up in some way. If you feel shame, and if you're being scolded or whatever, that you're not being double bound. That in fact, had you upheld the criteria, you wouldn't have gotten scolded. They wouldn't have just found something else to scold you for. So it's like, I have a father who's, in some sense, quite controlling. You might call him, and some people might call my dad a complete fucking asshole, right? It expressed, and if I were going to try to portray him as such, I would point to things like, I got screamed at the other day because I left my pillows on his couch, because I slept on that couch because it was hot in the room for a couple hours, and then I got him, I forgot to take my pillows with me. But the thing is, I was just like, I didn't feel guilty or ashamed, but I did feel like, well, you got me. He's made it abundantly clear that he does not want to enter into any of the rooms that are in his part of the house over there and have anything different than when he left it. I know this. I have had plenty of time to learn this, and I failed to do it, and so I deserve to get yelled at. At least then maybe I'll be less likely to do it next time. After all, it's his house, his couch, and I can do whatever I want in my part of the house. So he deserves my full respect, honor. It's like, honor thy father is whatever, but me honor my father is absolutely appropriate, because he's a great, wonderful human being who's also a complete dick who yells at people and stuff. So, who would have contempt for this fellow, I suspect. So let's move forward a little bit further here. And basically, when somebody is trying to... Basically, when we talk about humiliate, it means that you're trying to
bring injury to another person's...
Bring injury to another person's dignity. Right. That's not always bad. Sometimes it's absolutely necessary. Now, granted, the vast majority of people in the world don't need to be taken down a notch. They don't need more kicks in the ass. They need more pats on the back. Most of the time, the vast majority of people need that, right? But Dr. Les Carter definitely needs injury done to his dignity. He is awfully certain without any good cause. Because, look, you might say, Eric, you are someone who definitely needs to be taken down a notch. Look how brash and confident and certain you are in your claims. Well, that's because I'm constantly being taken down notches. In other words, I don't dismiss genuine critique of me, legitimate critique of me, on the grounds that it's critiquing me. I do dismiss illegitimate critique of me, so I basically just don't even read Jeff Shaw's comments anymore, because it's all the kind of stuff that he's talking about, gaslighty stuff. It's all trying to disrupt or unsettle a person's sense of safety in a discursive frame of reference. You know, in a safe discursive frame of reference is one in which reasonable people don't unreasonably cling to positions, but rather present them for the purpose of better coming up with more correct words, right? So it's like Jeff Shaw doesn't actually think Jonathan Bisonti is an ESFP, but that's what he's going to do. He's going to take a contradictory position to the conclusion I draw repeatedly in order to position himself as the lone wolf expert who's revealing that the emperor actually has no clothes. So I get the desire to do that. I love that version of hero myself. I love pointing out the emperor has no clothes. And in fact, I may very well be one of Earth's greatest practitioners of that art. I've pointed out many emperors with no clothes well before anybody else acknowledged it, only to have them come later agree with me. So I was all over this cops shooting people thing many years before Black Lives Matter co-opted an appropriate and much needed police reform movement into a racial thing. But regardless of that, so yeah, I'm really accustomed to having the right frame of reference before other people do. I don't remember why I said that. I don't remember where I was going with that. Let's continue a little bit more.
Dignity and their self-respect. And you're trying to create a feeling of powerlessness in other individuals. Now, again, I want you to stop and think. The narcissists that you've been around, have they ever done anything like this?
Okay, so you'll note what's tacitly said there is, I'm unwilling to listen and agree to somebody if they are critiquing me in ways that make me feel lesser. We all have to take our turn at the spanking table. Everybody does. I've had plenty of turns at the spanking table. You need to learn to get spanked gracefully. Everybody does. So you'll note, he thinks that if there's pressure being put on you, that it impacts your sense of self-worth, dignity, pride or whatever, that it leaves you powerless. That the person's trying to make you feel powerless. But I'm not trying to make this guy feel powerless. I'm actually trying to get him to listen to me and agree with me. He has the power to be right. He doesn't have to disagree with me. But because he can't, doesn't understand the concept of using introverted thinking to prioritize conclusions about statuses over things that work and experiences and yada yada, this golden this golden egg of truth I offer him, this golden opportunity for a genuine leap in self-growth, in which he recognizes, oh, I have been doing this thing that Eric's saying. I've been creating a shit on a constructed enemy to feel the satisfaction of twisting the knife generally enough that individuals who watch my channel can apply to the person they want to twist the knife on. Notice he says, as you may have dealt with the narcissists in your life, narcissists are very rare. If you've got multiple narcissists in your life, then what's going on? I mean, almost certainly you're overdiagnosing people as narcissists. I've known a couple. I've encountered a couple. I don't know them because they run in terror from me. Kimberly's aunt was an actual narcissist. I got to witness it at a party, and it's quite dramatic. She tried to control me. In other words, she tried to do a lot of what this guy's saying here. Note also the lack of actual concrete examples, which would allow us to meaningfully distinguish between narcissistic behavior and non. So I was at this party that went with Kimberly to her aunt's house, where her aunt's daughter was going to go off to college, and so it was kind of like a going away party. And the aunt had everyone walking on eggshells, of course, except for me. And I, in my gadfly fashion, started talking to the girls going off to college. So, what are you looking for? What do you think it's going to be like? Are you going to live in the dorms? Blah, blah, blah. And the aunt tried to basically squash that by conveying to Kimberly and Kimberly's mom that I was being too loud or something. I mean, you can see it. You know how that played out. They took me outside, and I was like, what the fuck? Okay, you guys don't seem to understand what's happening here. She's got you two dancing nervously, hoping you can control me. She's got you puppeted completely, right? As soon as she brought that up, you both should have laughed uproariously and said, I can't believe this stupid bitch. Can you believe this? Oh my God, Auntie, when did you become such a stupid fucking bitch? Do you really think you can control me like that? Very loudly in front of everybody. Now that's using shaming appropriately, because the woman engaged in a shameful attempt to control every member of her family down to the last detail. She's an actual narcissist. And it worked with her family. Because why? Because they didn't listen to me, right? They didn't take my approach. It's like, it was extraordinarily clear to me, it's always very clear to me where the boundaries are in terms of acceptable behavior and unacceptable. How much reasonable expectation can you impose upon me, and what comprises an unreasonable expectation. And if you attempt the latter, you will get my foot up your ass. So the thing is, there are narcissists. They do behave badly. They do create horrible situations like Kimberly's family. And then there are people who I think are probably narcissists, but it's really hard for me to tell because I don't get enough opportunity to interact with them. I don't even get that one opportunity to go to a party and see it in action or something. I'm pretty sure Rachel's brother is one, but it would be irresponsible of me to diagnose him as such and pathologize him. He could just be extremely conflict avoidant, However, the way he treated Rachel and the way the whole shit went down, it wouldn't shock me. But note my care in throwing that label around. This guy's talking as though everybody's got multiple narcissists in their life. That's just insane. And what he's doing is he's saying anytime, somebody's trying to hold you to account for anything, you can just accuse them of being a narcissist. So can we save Dr. Les Carter? Undercut your authority. Okay, so okay, let's watch.
Person that's in your presence that have not gone well. I'm hoping that person that's in your presence would say, "How may I know you better? What's the backstory? What can you and I do so that we can move forward and have healing here?" That's the healthy way of doing things. Narcissists never really receive that kind of message at all, and then you would like to think that that not having received it, that they would like to experience it in their adult years, but instead it's like, "Oh, I'm just going to perfect the superior role. Nobody's going to get away with anything negative in my presence." And then what makes humiliation so powerful is that it's done in a way that neutralizes any defense that you might try to offer. It's kind of like, well, if I speak up and talk about, what the real truth is, then the humiliating narcissist and their flying monkeys or the people that they've influenced may come along and say, "I don't know if that defense sounds very legitimate or not," because the narcissist has done such a good job of running into the ground.
If you know cognitive functions, you were as amazed to see that as I was right there, right? Wow. This is beginning to make me think maybe he can't be saved, right? Let's look at these words he says again. They're crazy. And then what makes humiliation so powerful is that it's done in a way that neutralizes any defense. Like, if I speak up, what the real truth is, then the humiliating narcissist may come along and say, "I don't know if that defense sounds legitimate." Because the narcissist has done such a good job of running into the ground,
their humiliation is meant to create trauma.
it is, of course. But all humiliation is meant to create trauma. I mean, all shamings. Let's correct ourselves in our diction here. Shamings may cause someone to feel humiliated. Okay. And shamings are indeed designed to create trauma. So here's the time I learned an important lesson in my life. When I was a teenager, one time I had some cereal and I had put the bowl in the sink without rinsing it off very well, leaving the milk and the cereal bit stuck to the side of the bowl. Something I had done for a long time probably. Well, on this particular occasion, I was like 14, my dad picked the bowl and he had had enough. And boy, did I get shamed. And you know what I've never done since? I've never not rinsed out cereal bowls. Because it's true. The cereal sticks to the side of the bowl. It's true. I was just being oblivious and just not even considering the fact that my dad was cleaning up after me. And that I was making it more difficult for him to clean up after me. Because I had been afforded this sort of privilege that, okay, we don't really want you messing around too much in the kitchen, so just put your dishes in the sink, rinse them, put them in the sink, we'll put them in the dishwasher, because I don't like the way you load the dishwasher, basically. I'm like, fantastic. Now I don't have to do any dishes or anything. Not that I ever was asked to. It was just like, from the get-go, when I was a kid, it was, I didn't do dishes. I just had to carry them from the table to the sink. So, okay, I needed that shaming to wake me up. I was operating in a position of entitlement that was maybe understandable because maybe they had contributed to make me feel that way or something, but from which I needed to be woken up. Was it traumatic? Yes, and not all trauma is bad. If we don't experience some trauma in our life when we make mistakes, then we've no reason not to repeat those mistakes. And it is the case when your mistakes negatively impact another party, then the just thing for people who need justice, for people who think, I'm not going to feel satisfied until I have justice, it's critically important that there be a reciprocal consequence. So, in fact, if I've caused you the hassle, discomfort, unpleasantness of having to scrub my cereal dish over and over again, then I need to experience a comparable level of discomfort, shame, etc. I need to be traumatized in equal measure to the trauma I conferred on others, subjected others to. Right? So the thing here is, underlying all of these messages from Dr. Les Carter is a fundamental rejection of statuses as mattering. That statuses, words, I will talk to you all day long with these words because I'm trying to convince you that these words are to be listened to so that you know that words don't really matter. So that we can just move forward. Your words, my words. You say you love me. I say you hate me. Let's just move on. Let's just move on. We agree to disagree. That's a healthy relationship. No, it's not. It's terrible. So, Dr. Les Carter, can you be saved? I invite you to have a conversation with me and have an opportunity to see what it's like to be held to account by somebody who's not trying to hurt you, although the necessary treatment may involve some painful things. And that's one of those kind of distinctions that needs to be made. Not everything traumatic is bad. If I've got a broken arm, it is very traumatic to have it reset. Somebody push it back into place. And it's absolutely necessary for healing. If I have a bad habit of a verbal tic of sorts, where every time I finish a sentence, I say, yippity dippity doo. Then I'm going to go to the store, yippity dippity doo. Is that my jacket over there? Yippity dippity doo. I need someone to inform me that bugs in a way that's powerful enough that it stops me from doing it going forward. It's for my own good and it's for everyone else's good. I somehow, because I'm young or whatever, haven't adequately developed awareness in that area to recognize how that's going to play and how that plays and how it reduces my capacity as a human being to manifest my own agency. So I need somebody who cares about me to spank me over it so that I won't do it anymore. And that's not narcissistic, that's loving. So the end of this video is as follows. I invite you, Dr. Les Carter, to come chat with me and work together with me towards recognizing that there are other metrics that are legitimate metrics that you are delegitimizing because you are not able to speak fluently in those metrics, but that you are capable of understanding that you aren't capable of understanding those metrics, and it could inform you in a way that allows you to make less dangerous and more helpful videos on the subject of narcissism. Thanks for watching, and don't forget to eat plenty of narcissists.